Hey, what's going on guys, Khraze here, welcome back to another Godfall video, and today let's talk about all of the armor sets in the game. Now we're just a few days away from the release of the game. It's gonna launch basically on the 12th, and there's quite a lot to discuss in this video. Of course, we did see a number of these Valorplates being shown in past videos, trailers, gameplay and whatnot, so in this video I kinda compiled all of the information that we had up until this point. Now in the next couple of days and even more so once the game releases, there's going to be a ton of Godfall content here on this channel, so if you want to see more of that, if you are planning to play the game even more so, then definitely make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe for more, and let's begin with everything you need to know about Valorplates. So what are Valorplates and what can you expect of these once the game launches on the 12th? Well, basically these are the equivalent of armor sets of this game. The game will launch basically with 12 Valorplates in total, with many more likely coming later down the line. But new Valorplates is something that you will be unlocking as you progress through the game, which is of course done through crafting, and you're going to definitely want to do that since many of these will provide some really unique stats, abilities, and will completely change the way you will play the game. So let's begin with the first Valorplate, which is also the one that you get really early on in the game. It's basically your starter item set that you begin the game with, and that is of course the silver main. You've likely seen this in most of the game trailers, videos, and all of the other like promos of Godfall up until today. But since this is your starter armor, it's also going to provide some pretty balanced stats, and you can see over there that it has some pretty nice distribution of both might, vitality, and spirit. Of course, it focuses mostly on reducing your cooldown on your ability, so that can come really handy early on in the game when you don't really have that many ways of reducing the cooldown. But it also comes with an interesting arcane ability, which is kind of like this ultimate that each armor set has, and that is to summon 3 warriors that will join you in combat. So that can be quite useful early on when you might not have all of these items at your disposal to kind of make a proper build. Now the next one is the Vertigo Valorplate, also aesthetically one of my favorites simply because of its really kind of like unique looks that you have compared to the other Valorplates. But it does come with a really interesting effect. Basically this specializes in supercharging your attacks with electric damage so that you can apply a shock damage over time against the enemies. So one of its passive is 10% chance to inflict shock damage with any of your attacks, which sounds really interesting, but its Arcane Fury ultimate is the one that will further buff that even more. So basically with the Arcane Fury activated, you will unleash a shockwave that deals 40 air damage and also provides the following effects, and that is 40% chance to inflict additional shock damage on top of the one that you already have, a 100% damage increase to enemies under the effect of your shocks, and finally attacks will be converted to air damage, so everything that you deal in terms of damage will be converted to that air damage instead. Moving on to number 3, this is gonna be all about the Aegis Horn and also the Valorplate that you're looking for if you're playing mostly as a tank slash support kind of class, because this gives you a ton of means of reducing incoming damage both to yourself and to your entire party. So first of all, it gives you a passive damage reduction buff as long as you have the Valorplate equipped, but the Arcane Fury is the one that is most potent because it will reduce all incoming damage both for you and your allies by up to 50%, and when damaged it's going to fire homing projectiles back into the enemies that attack you. So that actually sounds quite interesting, and I will say that aesthetically it looks really interesting because it's all bulky, kind of alien looking, and probably gonna be one of my favorites that I'm gonna be using once the game comes out. Moving on to number 4, we have the Mesa, which comes with a really interesting arcane ability, and that is to summon several pillars or totems that can shoot laser beams at nearby foes, which by the way looks really interesting because it seems that these can put some pressure on their like breach bar, so you can take down their defenses a little bit easier. But despite some of these abilities hinting towards this being kind of like a caster type of class, this doesn't necessarily seem to be the case, especially if we take a look at its constellation augments, which seem to be more focused on might and vitality rather than on spirit, which would normally be the one that you would be aiming for if you were to deal non-normal type of damage, so like ability and well elemental damage in this case. At number 5 we have the Typhon, also known as the Armor of Chaos. Looks really interesting. We don't really know exactly what its effects are so far, but what we do know is that in one of the gameplay footage that we had like a few months back, it was shown using this protective shield aura that seemed to prevent all enemy knockbacks and maybe even reflect some of the damage back into the enemy, which kind of goes hand in hand with that theme, Armor of Chaos. Like you would imagine, if you were to wear the Armor of Chaos, you would be able to go in uninterrupted and just deal damage without anybody being able to prevent any of that. But moving on to number 6, we have another very interesting and actually a very favorite of mine, which is the Armistice Valorplate, and this is basically the exact one that you need if you're specializing in breach damage. Now think of breach damage in Godfall as kind of like the stagger damage that we had in Ghost of Tsushima, or pretty much any other game out there that has a stamina bar to enemies, the one that is indicated beneath their normal health bar. This basically means that the more breach damage bonus you have, the faster you're gonna take down those stamina bars and expose their HP to all of your incoming attacks. But this is why the Armistice is so amazing. It first of all brings a passive 20% breach damage just from having this equipped. Then its Archon Fury ultimate is even more crazy because it's going to unleash a shockwave that breaches nearby enemies and deals 587 physical damage. And not just that, it's also going to provide the following bonuses during the Archon Fury. So first of all of your breach damage is going to be increased by another 100%, another 100% more damage on enemies that have been breached, then a 100% takedown damage, and finally a 50% bonus damage whenever you defeat a breached enemy or defeat an enemy with a takedown. So that is a ton of damage bonus to enemies that had their stamina bar destroyed by the ultimate, and furthermore, since you have that Archon Fury activated, you're going to deal further damage onto them and stagger everybody, which sounds all around really amazing. You would imagine that this is something that you're probably going to unlock a bit later into the game. But moving on to number 7, we have another very interesting one called the Hinter Clone. Now we don't really have any gameplay of this. What we have is a teaser over here that kind of showcases the armor, but it looks really amazing, kind of like wolf zodiac inspired. So if you want to look like a wolf, this is going to be the one for you. It's also something that will require a more complex crafting recipe, so you're going to probably get this a little bit later on in the game, maybe after we have finished the main campaign. But this is the armor set to go if you want insane boosts to critical hit damage, because basically most of its bonuses provide just that. So first of all, it gives you a passive 10% increase in critical hit damage, and then its Archon Fury will further boost critical hit damage by another 30%. And during that Archon Fury effect, if you kill any enemy, you're going to increase your critical hit by 20% each time, up to a maximum stack of 200%. So I think that this is going to be an amazing fit with something like the dual blades if you want to go in and deal fast damage with really high crits, or maybe even with like the spear. It would definitely sound really interesting. Now on top of these, we do have a couple of other armor sets that have also been showcased up until today, but we don't really have their exact stats, and these are the Phoenix and then later on the Greyhawk. Now the Phoenix sounds like something that we will likely be able to explore and play with quite early on in the game, maybe sometimes after the first one gets unlocked. So after the silver main, we might get the Phoenix, but it remains to be seen. It kind of looks really interesting. I really like it. It has of course those phoenix birds all over the face, the shoulders. It looks really interesting and I quite like the concept. But then we also have the Greyhawk, which is also kind of like bird inspired. It's basically inspired by the hawk zodiac, and it also looks every bit of amazing as you would have expected it. Of course, all of these armor sets look really amazing. These are just 9 out of the 12 that we know of already, but these were the only ones that we've seen in any gameplay up until now. Of course, once the game launches and it comes out, I'm going to review all of these armor sets, show you all of their abilities in game, and kind of make a ranking of each and every single one of these and what types of situations they are most useful into. But this is it with today's video. Now, if you did enjoy it at any point, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on it, and if you do want to see more Godfall content here on this channel, definitely let me know by leaving a comment down below and subscribing to the channel for more. And I'll see you guys in the next one.